Okay, we are back and we're online with Ben and David from Herbal Edibles in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and we're going to talk about the latest hot thing, so to speak, which is Rosin Tech or Rosin Tech, the technique of using a hair straightener iron that our wives and girlfriends probably have to make oil. So Ben, when did all this come to light, and what have you found out about it?
Well, it's pretty fascinating technology and fascinating in the sense that it's just overly simplified. It is just amazingly easy to do and perform and the best part is that patients can do it right from their house without any kind of extraction equipment or anything like that. And pretty much, you steal your girlfriend's hair straightener and you press out bud between um, some parchment paper, and boom, you're ready to be dabbing right then and there.
Okay, so we're talking about taking some bud. Now, can it be older bud, or does it have to be cured, or is fresh? What have you found is the best condition of the bud to use?
Well, Larry, I think the golden rule really applies here. And in that sense, the golden rule is if you want something good, you have to sacrifice something good. You can't just throw your waste trim or your stems at it and expect to get something uh, wonderful out of it. I mean, you will get something, but it may not be something you want to dab. So you really want to stick to your top shelf plant material, meaning bud. Um, David could speak a little more to that. He has more experience than I do, and
All right, so David, let me ask you this: we're talking about taking some small little buds. Would you? How big a bud are you talking about? You talking about like a?
Point 0.2, 0.3 grams. Just little tiny guys. Little tight nugs work best. Of course, if it's not covered in your trichomes, you're not going to get any return. So just take your bud, cut little pieces off. I've tried putting in the freezer prior, and I've tried not freezing it, and the results are about the same. I'll take my little bud, put it inside some parchment paper. I have my flat iron. Get my best squeeze about 300 degrees for about 5 to 7 seconds. People are going to have different temperatures because they're going to squeeze differently. I've got a good strong grip so I can really squeeze, and that's one of the most important parts of the technique
right.
is being able to squeeze. If you don't have strong hands, you might want to use your body weight somehow. I'm not going to recommend standing on it, jumping on it, or anything like that. Just use all the weight you can to really squeeze. If you don't have that squeeze, nothing's going to come out.
Right. So when going out to purchase a flat iron, one of these irons, obviously there's got to be some that are better than others. Are there any that have like temperature
The
controls on them, or?
There are many different brands. Remington makes one with little digital controls. Same with Revlon. The better ones are going to be like the brand Chi, but that's 120, $140 for a straightener. When you can get a really decent one for about $50 new, or go to Goodwill and spend $5 if you're not sure.
All right, so you're
Um,
talking about getting a flat iron and getting some parchment paper. So now you're going to take your point 0.2, point 0.3 bud or part of a bud, you're going to stick it in between the
the parchment,
parchment paper, and then that's when you go to do your squeeze. So
yes, sir.
so you're talking about 5 seconds. Now I've seen some videos on YouTube. Sometimes I see some smoke or vapor coming out of these things. Are you holding it to that point?
Yes, you will see a little smoke. You will see a little vapor. You'll even hear a little bit of a sizzle. You're not squeezing it long enough at that temperature to really damage anything in a major way. Applying heat, you do have some damage to your meds, but very little. You're just giving a good hard squeeze, and as soon as, like, you could actually see the resin coming out of the flower while you're squeezing it. And you'll just see a little appear. You just open it up, pull your flat flower out, and just use your dabbing tool to pick out any little leaf that's left in there. I let it sit to room temperature for about 5 or 6 minutes. You could squeeze it together to make it pretty if you want, but keep things simplified, just take it off the parchment and dab it.
So
One
so go ahead. So if you're about to say, I'm guessing if you do 1 gram of flower bud, what is the percentage of return on the oil?
Well, that's a tough one.
It's a real get what you give
I
scenario.
squeezed. I believe it was Blackish Street, and we got 25% out of it, out of 1 gram, which was a really good return. I squeezed some of my own flowers. I got a 22% return. So I mean, it's if you go in with a good product, you'll come out with a good product.
Right.
If you have a flower that has 10% THC, it looks like it's been beat up and thrown in a bag for 10 days, you're not going to get anything out of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be a nice looking piece of product. Now you can make your rosin with keef or your other different hashes.
Bubble hash.
Bubble hash. It's not going to be that pretty gold that looks like your BHO, but it's still perfectly dabbable. It works just fine. It's just not as pretty. Now, if you're using keef or bubble hash, you're going to want to make sure it's in a little tight ball. Again, zero point 0.2, zero point 0.3 grams. On that one, I use a 25 micron drying screen. Wrap my little piece of hash in there and then squeeze through the screen. That way, the loose plant matter will stick on the screen and the oil still flows through the parchment.
Okay, so
And
that's different than using the bud with the parchment paper. So, so you're saying that using the 125 micron screen,
just a 25 microns.
I'm
what I
sorry,
use.
25. Okay, and so whatever you get out of that, would you think it's decarbed or do you think it's not decarbed?
I would not. I would definitely say it's not decarbed.
Even though
You're bringing up to maybe 100 and through the parchment and through the squeeze, maybe 160 degrees for 5 seconds. You're not going through a decarb process.
Okay.
You're not hitting that 225 plus degrees for X amount of minutes, whatever you decide works best for you, 20, 30 minutes and on. You're not doing that. It's just a quick squeeze.
Okay.
If you want to use that to make edibles, you
Yes.
still have to go through your decarb process.
All right. So how would you let's say you took maybe 5 grams of bud and you did it slowly and you built up your return. So let's say you get 25% off of that, and you wanted to decarb it. What would the simple method for patients to, if they want to decarb it at home and maybe add it to a stick of butter or something to make some edibles? How would you decarb that?
In the oven.
Yeah, I would say just
yeah,
on some
that's-
parchment paper on
In the
a
oven.
tray in the oven.
So about 225 in the oven for what, 10 minutes, 15?
Yeah, right around there. It's all right to get a little hotter than that. There's different levels of decarbing. But yeah, like right in that neighborhood. I like to leave it in for about a half hour just so everything's fully decarbed.
At what temperature, Ben?
Uh, Between like 225 and 240.
Okay. And now, what you're left with when you use this flat iron squeezing technique is a very flat bud that you're carefully peeling off of the parchment paper to show how much oil is there. Can anything be done with that flat bud later?
Yes, lots can be done. I follow a few threads where a lot of people are just chopping them up and rolling them into joints and smoking them. They're not getting the full effect as would be a fresh bud, but they're still getting a mid-grade bud. Some people turn that into a butter itself by going through a home butter process where just like you would use your flowers to make butter, but of course you would have to use more of that end product to get your levels where you want them to be. You could wash it and make a bubble hash with the remainings, but again, you're going to have to add more because you are taking out.
Right. I mean, obviously, you're maybe taking out 20 to 25% of the trichome. Maybe there's, a whole bunch left over that the crock pot or your other way of making butter or coconut oil would suck out.
Would pull that out.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
suck
Most
that out.
definitely.
Yeah, I would recommend grinding it before
Yes.
doing an extraction process, re-extracting.
Okay. And you guys have done that and had a successful extraction from the used Rosin method?
Well, we're still experimenting with it, and you do get some return. I wouldn't call it like a great return. The returns are definitely diminishing.
Hmm. And let's see. How about uh, what's the biggest mistake that first-time users of this technique are making?
Burning yourself.
Oh, okay, okay.
It's a perfectly safe process to do. I mean, you could sit at your kitchen table and make rosin chips all day, have a nice little dab session, but you're still playing with something that's 275 plus degrees hot. You still
Right.
can burn yourself. It's a very simple thing. You just, if you don't squeeze it hard enough, you're not going to get anything out.
Right.
That's, probably the biggest technique issue is you got to get a good squeeze.
And if you're burning yourself, use an oven mitt.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's what I was
yeah.
going to ask. So it's advisable, I guess, to use some gloves or an oven mitt if you're going to be sitting there and doing multiple squeezes or multiple runs on a bunch of bud. Obviously, that iron's going to get pretty hot at some
Yeah.
point. And
Safety first.
and you recommend again the highest setting on these irons?
Oh, no, sir, no, sir. You're gonna have to find out what setting works best for, because every iron on the market's different. Even running in the same brands, two different irons might not hit the same temperature when you set them on six or you dial in at 275 degrees. I'd recommend getting an inexpensive infrared thermometer. That way you could zap your iron, see where the hot spots are.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you'll be able to know exactly what temperature and exactly what setting you are. And that's all fine tuning. I mean, you could just get the middle of the road setting, give it a good squeeze, and see what you have, and just it's all you have to see what works best for you. I get to use a little bit lower temperature because again, I have that good strong squeeze. Somebody who can't squeeze that hard might have to raise the temperature up to 320 degrees or 300 degrees to
Mm-hmm.
get the same effect. Now, the hotter it goes, the less flavor you get.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. What is the taste like? Are you getting the terpenes and everything, or are they being squeezed out as well?
Some of the squeezes I'm getting a really good flavor. It's almost like pulling a dry hit on a joint, a nice, fresh, clean, wonderful flavor. Others, it tastes like vaporized weed, where you're tasting it kind of like a burnt popcorn taste, and that's
Right.
you learn you squeezed a little bit too long, or you put a little bit too much pressure, or you just turned the patty and held it in the spot too long. Just little things like that. You played with it trying to make it pretty too much, and you beat it up.
And of course, I'm going to recommend that people, before they try this, actually go online to YouTube and punch in a search for the Rosin Rosin technique, and watch some videos because it'll
Um,
certainly.
there's I'm sorry. There's one guy I believe is DK420. He does some really good stuff with the rosin. On Instagram, there's a guy I believe he goes by Soilless. He's probably the guy for the rosin in the country, and he shares everything he knows right there.
What's his name again? You broke up a little bit on that.
I believe it's Soilless,
Soilless.
Soil, yes, or Soilless Grown, one or the
Uh
other.
huh. Okay.
I can't remember off the top of my head.
Sure, sure, sure. Ben, any other new techniques that you've come across lately, or is this like the simplest thing for a patient who
Yeah,
can't
this
afford?
is really good for the patient. There's no big investment for equipment. There's no danger to it, and it gives you a really nice product.
So this is really revolutionizing this business for home use. I mean, obviously, there's so much controversy about people using butane at home and starting fires and blowing up houses and hurting themselves. So
Sure.
obviously, this is not a technique to do mass quantities. I mean, it wouldn't really work commercially, but I have seen some stuff on the internet about using a T-shirt press that they stick decals on T-shirts, pictures and stuff. Have you guys worked with any of that yet, or heard anybody doing that?
No, we haven't really invested in anything like that yet because there really isn't a demand for it yet. BHO still seems to be number one on everyone's must-have list. Um, so, until, a market develops for solventless extracts, I really don't see a need to get into it just yet.
What I mean, do
But
you?
it's something that we would consider, though. I mean, it's just, everyone still wants BHO, and every time I pitch, solventless, everyone's just like, no, just make shatter, it'll be fine.
And so okay, let's just talk about that. Let's just briefly define the difference between shatter, wax, butter, and all that stuff, because I think there's a lot of newbies out there that don't know the difference.
Well, sure. Well, it's all the same thing in essence. It's all BHO. They're just different textures that you use different techniques to obtain. Of course, the top tier would be shatter, and that's a BHO extraction, which when you do a secondary solvent re-extraction on it by melting down your BHO in Everclear or ethanol and freezing it, and then filtering out your fats and lipids, and then re-evaporating your solvents, and boom, you're left with a pure crystalline shatter. And then I guess the next tier down would be honeycomb, and that's made by agitating your BHO, and then
Whipping it, so to speak.
correct,
Okay.
correct. And then down from there is would be, I'd say, like a butter, like a nice dry, not so much crumbly, but soft to the touch, real malleable, doesn't stick to your fingers. Um, and then down from there, I guess you would have like your waxes and, your stickier resins. And I guess down from there would be just your underpurged, just unfinished hash oils.
And would one of these techniques or definitions of shatter and oil and butter obviously be purer than one of the others?
Well, yeah, I definitely say the shatters are the most pure because you go through that extra step of refining your extract,
Mm-hmm.
and by pulling out the fats and lipids, you're therefore raising your THC content.
David, any final words and thoughts about either the Rosin or any of this? A lot of people are new to dabbing, David. I've probably only done a dozen dabs, ever, and I just recently got a little tiny rig. So for first-time dabbers, how about a little explanation on what not to do and what to do right?
Probably the best thing to do is take it slow, start small. Um, Waxes, oils, BHOs, the rosins, those are all extremely concentrated forms of your cannabis. You're getting a lot more than just smoking on the flower. If you're not used to it, you can cause yourself a little bit of stress, but you really won't do yourself any true physical harm. You'll just get yourself a little too stressed out. Take a moment, drink some water. If you're a first-time dabber, I'd recommend have a chair nearby or dab sitting down because you don't know how it's going to affect you.
Mm-hmm. You
It
can pretty
does
much.
not take, sorry, it does not take much to feel the effect. You hear these people taking these huge half-gram dabs, 0.10 gram dabs. That's not necessary.
Yeah,
Just
there's
little
a
small fraction dabs. Take two or three of those over a course of an hour, and you'll feel a lot better than just one big glob.
Okay, and should your rig always have like some water in it, or to help cool it down a little bit?
I keep
yes.
water in my rigs, definitely. That's what they're designed for. They're designed to work just like a water pipe. There are instruments to inhale your hashes, your oils without water, like your pens, your vaporizing pens, the nectar collector type items, things like that. They all can be dry without water. But again, take it slow, take it
Mhm.
easy.
And what about? I think the important question is this, and then there's controversy about that. I've seen people online blow out their hit immediately, and some people holding it. What do you feel is? Some people think that you can only absorbs so much in your lungs, and so let it out. Holding it long does not do anything better. How do you guys feel about that?
Personally, what affects me best is little tiny hits, hold it in for 4 or 5 seconds, and exhale slow.
And
I get the most medication in my body that way. Some people might feel different, but unless you try, you really don't necessarily, you don't know unless you try. You don't know what you don't know.
Absolutely. Okay, Ben, just to finish up here, Herbal Edibles, Albuquerque, supplying certain dispensaries with your products. Where can they get your products? Everybody's talking about the lemon bars. What's up with who's got the goods?
Well, right now we've got our products in 4 different producers. Starting at Verdes, they were our first and original location. And then we've got Budding Hope out in, where are they? Clovis, out in Clovis. And we've got
Grassroots.
Grassroots. They're in Albuquerque now on 2nd Street. And we've also got Compassionate Distributors down in Ruidoso.
Fantastic,
Yeah.
and you can also go to Herbal Edibles has a great Facebook page with some incredible pictures of not even also the rosin technique as well as some of their other products. So Ben and David, not Ben and Jerry, but Ben and David, thank you very much for telling my audience about the Rosin technique and giving them some help in trying it themselves. I really appreciate that, and we'll have you back. Are you guys going to the Cup next week?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Most definitely.
Okay, well then,
Well, I am.
Ben, are you going, bud?
Well, I got a baby on the way. She's like a month from popping.
Ah, no
So
kidding. Okay, it's that
yeah,
soon.
I might stay behind for this one.
Okay, well, David, make sure you have my cell phone number, and I want to meet you when we get up there.
Most
Ben,
definitely.
Ben and David from Herbal Edibles Albuquerque, thank you so much, and we'll talk
All
to
right.
you
Thank
soon.
you.
Thank you, Larry.
All right.